Let's get more on how that debate played out. I'm joined from Chicago by Democratic consultant Nayela Amaru. Nayela, lovely to have you with us. For your money, who emerged from the pack?
Thank you for having me. You know, debates are about each candidate finding a breakaway moment, finding that one-liner, finding that counter-argument. And out of the entire field, I would say Elizabeth Warren and Julian Castro came out on top. Elizabeth Warren went into this debate kind of seen as the top tier candidate of the candidates that she would be sharing the debate stage with. And she did what she had to do. All the questions were framed to the other candidates based off of her policies, which indicates that she has positioned herself as the candidate to go after in terms of trying to take away from the base that she has been consistently building in the polls. And the other candidate that really did very well was Julian Castro. Julian Castro has not been polling very well, but this was his really big opportunity to get and maximize the exposure that he had. And he ran away with, I think, really just the moments that he needed to really capitalize on positioning himself as a top tier candidate for that first night of the debate.
It is interesting because, as you point out, he hadn't been that much heard of or that much noticed compared to, say, a Beto O'Rourke, where there's been so much fanfare around him. He just did not cut through.
Absolutely. And I think that was intentionally part of Castro's strategy, right? So it's Julian Castro and Beto O'Rourke are the two from Texas, right? And when it comes to a national debate stage, and particularly when it comes to the issue of immigration, which is of particular importance in a state like Texas, Julian did exactly what he needed to do. He separated himself from Beto O'Rourke. He capitalized on Beto O'Rourke's lack of policies and positioned himself with his own. And he was very, very specific in terms of this is what we need to do about the immigration debate. Although most of them were light and generic on their answers, he was one of the few candidates, if not the only, that offered something specifically in terms of this is what I would do to change the immigration system. And that cost Beto, and it cost him big.
Yeah. And that's what's quite interesting in this whole process, because the field is so big. Are the Democrats focused on a philosophy that they think can beat Donald Trump or an individual that can beat Donald Trump?
So I think it depends, right? So what's interesting about the first night lineup and tonight's lineup is the first night lineup were most of your progressive candidates on the progressive left-wing side of the party, with the exception of a few, whereas tonight you have, I think what people are really watching for is the fight between the two top candidates, which are Biden and Sanders, which represent two very different ideological poles within the party. So when we were talking about policies on the first night, because most of them were coming from the left-wing progressive side of the party, there wasn't a lot of pushback in terms of policies or the philosophical ideas, again, because most of them, just by the way that the lineups were drawn, were in agreement philosophically. There was some nuance and some disagreement in terms of the policies, but generally speaking, when it came to philosophy, most of them were in agreement. I think we will see a lot more challenging directly and indirectly in tonight's debate, as we're looking at the two titans, if you will, in terms of the two top tier contenders will be going head to head, and again, clearly representing two very different sides of the Democratic Party.
Absolutely. And we're talking there of Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden, also Kamala Harris, who's also in the mix, and one of a number of women who are in the field this year compared to Hillary Clinton, who was on her own in the end the last time.
Absolutely. And I think it'll be interesting as the debates unfold and as the campaigns unfold to see how the women differentiate themselves from each other, but also from the rest of the field, you know, and that is an important dynamic, I think, to acknowledge in terms of when Hillary Clinton was running in 2016, she was the first and the only. So there was not really any other candidate to really kind of compare her to in terms of, you know, how she showed up in terms of policies. And this time around, we are very fortunate as a party to have a very diverse field of candidates, but also that diversity is reflected in the women have women from across the different country, from Klobuchar, who is more moderate, representing Minnesota, which is more rural and also urban. You have Kamala Harris, who is representing, millions in a state like California. You have Gillibrand, who is representing New York. And while all are women, all are very uniquely positioned to try and grab key votes within the Democratic base.